I'm gonna make this video basically, and I'm gonna give full disclosure to a gentleman that is inspiring this video, someone that I saw on Twitter put out a very insightful tweet, and if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. He put out this tweet, basically, his name is Adam Abramowitz, and if I mispronounce your name, I apologize ahead of time. He said, basically, in regards to PBC and Al Haymon, that Al Haymon and PBC were given $500 million to put free fights on free network television, which they were doing for the first year and a half or so. And now, almost 2 years or 2.5 years later, we're back where we started, and all of the Haymon fighters are now back, for the most part, on Showtime, or at least the big fights for that matter, but predominantly most of the fights are back on Showtime. So a lot of people are praising this schedule, and I'm praising it too. Obviously, not every single fight is a banger. You know, it's not a barn burner. We know that Danny Garcia is going to beat Brandon Rios. We know that Sergey Lipinets isn't going to beat Mikey Garcia, or at least that's what I believe, and that's the popular opinion. That's the consensus out there. But we still did get some good fights. You know, we got Luis Ortiz versus Deontay Wilder, so we can't really complain about that one. And the Omar Figueroa fight versus Adrian Broner, judging by where both of those guys are in their career, that's not a bad fight either. And if I go back and look, there's a few others that stood out to me as very intriguing matchups. Whether or not they were significant or not, I think if you base the styles and how they match up against each other, I think they would play out to be good fights. But with that being said, you know, I was the biggest PBC supporter. I was the biggest optimist 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, when PBC came out. And I was really excited, and I was really high on the fact that, yeah, you know, Al Haymon has all these fighters. He has all these networks that he had purchased time buys on where he could showcase fights. And thing is this, I said, I'm going to give him 2 years. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, because Haymon has had a track record with HBO of basically trying to overprice fights to the networks, and the networks would essentially turn down these fights, and then it, you know, kind of forced Haymon to do business with Showtime, and not so much with HBO, because HBO was really selective on what fights they wanted to show. Now, even though Haymon has had these time buys on these other big networks, and all he had to do was basically pay the advertisers and get, you know, or get the advertisers to help fund the events. A lot of these events did end up losing money. A big part of that was because not all of them were great matchups. Some of them were, but a lot of them weren't. And at the end of the day, we drive the business, us the fans, for the most part. We are the eyeballs that are watching the events, and we are the people that are buying the tickets. And, you know, Al Haymon's history of being inconsistent in terms of putting on good fights, and obviously, you don't expect every single fight to be a banger. No, we don't. But we expect, at least if a fighter's fighting 3 times a year or 2 times a year, at least one of those fights to be a decent matchup. And a lot of these fighters were being shelved, maybe because it was injury, or maybe, as I said, where I projected before, that Haymon had so many fighters that he just couldn't have enough dates to keep all these fighters busy. And I thought that would be a problem. And it's shown to be a problem now. So at the end of the day, it seems like we're back where we started. We don't have any of these fights down the line being scheduled on any of the big networks, really. No NBC fights, no CBS fights. I think we have one of the Fox fights, but obviously ESPN's gone. I'm not so sure what the status is with the Spike deal. But at the end of the day, because of the inconsistency of the matchups, I should say, and because of the mentality of Al Haymon being a manager first and a promoter second, being in that role, it's all about risk reward for the fighter and trying to get the fighter the best payday for the least amount of risk. And you could do that only so long in this game, and then fans will turn a blind eye to that strategy. So when you look at a guy like Bob Arum, obviously no one gives you every single fight you want to see. So you can always point to a fighter and say, well, this guy should have fought that guy. And a lot of times we blame the promoter. But at the end of the day, the job of a promoter is obviously to build the fighter. But the end game is to put him in there in a big money fight against a big money opponent. And the only way to do that is put him in there with someone who the public thinks, hey, this fight could go either way. You know, that garners a lot of attention from us. And all of the super fights, for the most part, that we've seen that have done good numbers, basically were because they were really significant matchups, number one, and they were competitive matchups, number two, on paper. So Bob Arum has had a history of over 45 years in the sport. He knows how to build fighters. You can say what you want, but he did take Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather fresh out of the Olympics, and he was a big contributing factor to getting those guys started off in their careers. Now, did they leave him and become bigger stars? Yes, but the foundation, I believe, was built under Top Rank. So when you ask me about Top Rank and you compare Top Rank to PBC, I'm not going to sit there and say Top Rank's angels. Bob Arum has done shady business in the past. He has been convicted of taking bribes before, and he is a little shady when it comes to some of the backdoor deals, but I'm not going to get into that too much, because every promoter or every big force in boxing has a history, and they have skeletons in their closets. So we know that. But at the end of the day, Bob Arum is a promoter first. So the end game for him is he's concerned about the event more so than the individual fighter. And that's basically, beneficial to the fans. That's definitely beneficial to the fans, because we want the best matchups. I mean, obviously, we care about fighters too. For the most part, we're consumers. It's like, when you're buying a Nike, or you're buying a Samsung, or you're buying an iPhone, we already know that these guys that are making these products are being exploited. Whether or not we agree with them or not, at the end of the day, the reality of the situation, whether it be morally correct or not, when we're going in the store and buying a Samsung, or we're going in the store and buying an iPhone, or we're going in the store and buying a pair of Nikes, our main objective is to get the product that we feel is going to benefit us the most, and the product that we enjoy and we're going to want to use the most. So at the end of the day, yeah, of course, I don't want to see fighters retire broke. Of course, I don't want to see fighters retire without a pension. Of course, I don't want to see fighters suffer brain damage and not be able to pay their medical expenses because they have no savings or no 401k, whatever. I get all that. That's all well and good. But at the end of the day, I am a consumer of fights. I am a consumer of entertaining fights. That's my preference. So at the end of the day, I want to hold everyone accountable. I don't care who the promoter is, who the manager is, who the network is. At the end of the day, I want some good fights out of my boxing viewership. And I understand Keith Thurman is coming back from an injury. Yeah, he can have a tune-up. But I don't want to see 3 tune-ups, okay? I understand, Deontay Wilder, case in point. Everyone has been critical of Deontay Wilder's resume and his choice of opponents in the past. But we cannot complain about this Luis Ortiz fight. This is a great fight, and I will give props to that. So I know people are going to sit there and say, well, all these fighters that are on Showtime are Al Haymon fighters, and they're going to try and give Al Haymon the credit. No, but in my opinion, Al Haymon had the keys to the store before when he was given that $500 million. And I believe he squandered it. Now, it wasn't his money, so I'm not so sure how much he cares about it, but at the end of the day, it looks as though the genius of Steven Espinosa is now bailing out Al Haymon. And, Steven Espinosa has revitalized boxing for a lot of these Al Haymon fighters. And even though a lot of them are inactive, I think credit to them, they've been very vocal about being inactive. And it seems as though some of them are now starting to get more fights. They're starting to have, a schedule laid out in front of them where they can fight 2 or 3 times a year, which is what's supposed to happen. I mean, Lomachenko, say what you want about him, he fought 3 times last year. Terence Crawford fought twice last year, and in one of those fights, it was, for an opportunity to unify the titles, which he did. He got a significant fight. So basically, all of the top fighters, Canelo Alvarez, Anthony Joshua, they all got significant fights last year. And you can look at all these Al Haymon fighters, and for the most part, they were one-sided mismatches. And given the roster that Haymon has, given the amount of fighters he has in these high-profile divisions, we should have gotten a lot more, and we didn't. So I'm going to give Haymon the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give these PBC fighters the benefit of the doubt by judging by what I'm hearing from Sean Porter and judging by what I'm hearing from Keith Thurman. I'm a little bit skeptical and I'm a little bit pessimistic already starting off this 2018. So you guys let me know what you think. Did Steven Espinosa bail out Al Haymon? And now, are these fighters speaking up now that some of them are leaving, jumping ship? And now, will we see a different schedule of boxing? Will this be consistent from start to finish? Okay, so, without a network to put these fights on, doesn't matter who's managing these fighters. At the end of the day, the network needs fighters, but the fighters need a network. As big as Floyd Mayweather was, he could not facilitate his brand and his product without Showtime and without Steven Espinosa, who's orchestrated that deal for Floyd Mayweather. He was the only person that wanted to step up and give Floyd Mayweather that big deal. And at the end of the day, when you look at the McGregor fight, when you look at the Pacquiao fight, and when you look at the Alvarez fight, I could honestly say that fight dealed out. And Steven Espinosa's a genius, so I give him full credit. And I have to ask a lot of you guys out there one question. When you look at Al Haymon, ask yourself, what other great thing has he done in boxing that does not have Floyd Mayweather's name attached to it? What other superstars has he created or worked with? Ask yourself that. And then you turn around and you can say and ask the same question to Bob Arum, who's been in the business for over 45 years, who's smart enough to have surrounded himself with smart people like Todd DeBuff, his son-in-law, like Bruce Trampler, a great matchmaker, Carl Moretti, another great assistant that used to work with DeBella, who was very intelligent in the sport. And Bob Arum knew, he evolved. He knew that social media was important. He knew that, being able to promote these guys and put them out to the masses, how important it was. Ask yourself, now this Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz fight is scheduled to happen before the Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker fight. But ask yourself one question. How many press conferences have you seen for this Wilder Ortiz fight? Okay? How many commercials? How has this fight been really promoted to us and pushed to us? And the flip side of that is go look at what's happening with Anthony Joshua and Joseph Parker. I believe they've already had 2 press conferences for the fight. So at the end of the day, these guys need to step up. Deontay Wilder needs to be promoted properly. He needs to be pushed. Okay? He needs for Lou DiBella to shove Deontay Wilder down the public's throats. He needs to be put out there. There's a reason why Deontay Wilder only has 224,000 followers, and Anthony Joshua has almost 2.5–3 million followers on Twitter. And there's a reason why, Anthony Joshua has 5 million followers on Instagram, because he's being promoted, he's being pushed. If you look at what's going on over in the UK, Anthony Joshua is on, talk shows. He's in commercials. He has big time endorsements. He is being labeled as one of the top 5 most marketable people in sports, not just boxing, in all sports already. So basically, I think that even though boxing is not as big in America as it is over UK, I think that our promoters can be doing better. We should be pushing our fighters out there. They should be, on more shows. They should be doing interviews more. They should be doing conference calls more. They should be having press conferences more. And I think that that will help us, or help our fighters, I should say, become popular. And that would help give Deontay Wilder a little bit more leverage in these negotiations. So at the end of the day, I'm rooting for everyone to succeed, because at the end of the day, if everyone succeeds, then I get the best product out there. So I'm going to hold all of these Al Haymon fighters' feet to the fire this year, and I'm expecting more. And if I don't get it, I'm going to voice my opinion that, hey, I don't think this is a good matchup, and I'm going to just let it be known that we should be getting more when I feel we should be getting more. And at the end of the day, I think all of us should do that, because that's going to help us get the matchups we want. Now, is it going to instantly give us what we want? No, but down the road, these people are going to say to themselves, well, you know what? People aren't watching our fights anymore. We're going to have to do something. So at the end of the day, I think we should all, have a high standard of what we want to see. And I think we should call out the substandard matchups, and we should point out when a fight isn't happening that really should happen. So let me know what you guys think. Once again, we'll probably be talking about this tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Ringside Reporter podcast here on my Beating the Odds with Pete channel. So until next time, talk to you guys soon, and peace out.